I hope I've enticed you a little bit of with our upcoming events. And coming to the film tonight, Agent Orange, a personal requiem by Masako Sakata, an internationally acclaimed film that we're gonna watch, and Ms. Sakata is going to be available for question and a little address after the film. So I'll hope, well, it's going to be an interesting showing. So we'll see each other afterwards. Thank you.
The gentlest protest song I know. It doesn't protest gently, but it sounds gentle. It's called What Have They Done to the Rain?
I think I need a strong drink. A bit lost for words. Masako, would you like? I mean, maybe. Okay, just. If I don't know, if have you got anything prepared or? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, that was not easy to digest, I think. What came off that film? I mean, in the years. I mean, the film was released in 2007, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing, as far as I am concerned, most important thing for me personally was that it gave me power to go on after I lost my husband, and that's why I'm here now. Without it, I don't know what I would have done.
Right.
And I haven't seen this film for some time, and in seeing it again, I think again how much power I was given by the victims of Agent Orange. I was remembering from each scene that how I felt while I was there and photographing, and my emotions at each moment came back to me, and I realized that I was really, really helped by making this film to go on. So that's one thing that came about, and I was in my mid-50s when I started this film. I had never had any experience in making documentary, and it was just because I was so lost with the sudden loss of my husband, and I had to do something. I had to know what Agent Orange was all about. And it happened that I was an exchange student in the state of Maine in the 60s. And Greg and I used to go for summer vacations to Maine. And after he died, we brought his ashes to one of the lakes to spread. And I learned that there was a small workshop to teach how to make documentary film to somebody who's totally new in the field. It was a course of 2 weeks. And I decided to take it, and I had never even touched a camera, and I learned how to use the camera, and I learned how to edit a movie on computer in these 2 weeks. and I asked Philip to go with me to Vietnam. And in the 1980s and 1960s, we heard a little bit about Agent Orange because it became news around that time. But I had forgotten. I thought it was all over, and everything was taken care of, and nothing more was happening. But when Philip told me that Greg's death was maybe because not maybe, but Philip was very sure that it was because of Agent Orange. I was a bit doubtful. How can it go on 35 years after it was spread? But the more I visit Vietnam, and the more I get to know people, both in Vietnam and US, the more convinced I became about the fact that it is because of Agent Orange.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I must say, I mean, I was really not aware of that. This. I mean, for me, that was an issue of the past as well. I mean, of the Vietnam War and the aftermath. But I had not realized that this is still such a current issue, and people are still so much affected by the effect of that.
Yeah, and the American government. The strange thing is, in 1991, America passed under Clinton. They made Agent Orange Act. And they decided to help Vietnam veterans, American Vietnam veterans. And if you are sick with 17 kinds of cancers, and if you had ever been to Vietnam during the wartime, you are regarded as a victim of Agent Orange, while America is still denying any relationship of health and Agent Orange in Vietnam. So there's a discrepancy there. And last year, they started to clean up some of the hot spots, which there are 28 of them still, mainly at a former American Air Base. But they're still denying the relationship between Agent Orange and health effects.
So there's still no help for the victims.
No help, but Americans say, we're nice people, we help you, because we are charitable. Right. So that's their attitude.
Sorry. Good.
Hi, Dr. Rogers. Can I ask, do you know if the same sort of abnormalities in children are being found in Bhopal in India, where they have the dioxin?
Bhopal? Yeah, well, I don't know if it's the same kind, but people in Bhopal are still suffering.
I know about the problem. I was just wondering whether it was the similar sort of abnormalities in the children.
I don't know if it's the similar kind. Not much is reported, is there? And of course, many of the deformities that are found in Vietnam, there's no proof that it is related to Agent Orange. They just Vietnamese Association of Victims Agent Orange. They check. They have now. Well, I have to say, in the past 8 years since I started to film this, there have been quite an improvement in the organization in Vietnam, and they have established 50 chapters almost in each province, and it's checking through people's communities' health, etc., who's sick and what the family history is. And if any of the parents were in the directly sprayed area or were deployed during the war, any deformities in children are considered to be the results of Agent Orange, and they do offer the government, Vietnamese government, do offer support to those children.
Some years ago in the late 90s, we visited Tu Du Hospital. And actually met that very wonderful doctor that you have in your film.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I found very strange, because he would come back and tell me what he'd done today, all women, pregnant women, had scans. Now that was way back when they didn't, all the rubber gloves in theatre were washed, autoclaved and reused, needles, everything. They didn't have money to buy stuff, so they reused them all. But every woman had a scan.
That's what?
A scan.
The ultrasound.
ultrasound scan.
Yeah, okay.
And they would be doing up to 500 scans a day on all the women in that provinces around Ho Chi Minh. And now we know why. They had rusty old scanning machines, and doctors piling them in and out, in and out, in and out. Whereas, say in Hong Kong, you'd only be given an ultrasound scan if there was a fear there was something wrong. You certainly wouldn't be doing 500 a day. And this must have been why, with this lovely lady that you worked with, that you did your program with. Yes, so there. They already knew lots already back then.
Yes, well, the ultrasound checking is very important in Vietnam. So I asked them how much they find, how many abortions there are, and I could not get the clear answer. But often, I made a sequel of this film, and in that, the doctors at Tudo Hospital explains that it is left up to the mother. Actually, the question was raised by an American daughter of Vietnam veteran who was born without a leg and missing some fingers. She asked the question, saying that if mothers decide not to have children because of ultrasound, I would not have been here. And then the doctor said, we would not recommend abortion if it was like missing limbs. We only try to abort if it was a major defects like cerebral defects. But I don't know how they can tell.
Thanks. Thank you so much for sharing your story. You said you made a sequel, and I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit of an update with us of what happened since you made this film, to the people you profiled, and also just any major developments in their cases.
Yes, I went back to and visited the same people 4 years afterwards for the sequel, and the situation is in many cases more severe. Like the boy with the 2 heads, he's bigger, he's very heavy, and before the mother could carry, but now it takes the whole family of 4 to carry him, and his deformities are even more severe. But the good news is the little girl who wanted to become a teacher or doctor, she is actually studying to become a doctor because she wants to help her brother. That's the good news. But in many cases, the situation is getting worse. Although the Vietnamese government is trying to do more. Yeah, well, there's more to be said about that, but I don't know where to begin.
Thank you. Well, I want to compliment you on the great courage that you must have taken to decide to make this film and a sequel.
Thank you.
My question is, you must have rattled quite a few official cages with publicizing the extent of the current still damages and deformities that human beings suffer from Agent Orange. Have you had any problems, threats, obstacles put in your path in publicizing all this information? Because you're dealing with some major chemical companies and the US government.
No, nothing. No, I don't think chemical companies don't even bother to watch it. If I sent it to them, they wouldn't watch it. They just, they just brush it away. So I haven't really had any obstacles. And for one thing, it wasn't seen in America much. It was bought by American university libraries, but the public TV and public theaters just wouldn't show it. It had a pretty good reception in Russia and in France and some European countries, but America just refuses to deal with that. And that makes me think of this new trend, which is like, this is 50th anniversary of the beginning of Vietnam War. I don't know from which date they're counting, but there seems to be a reconsideration of the war now. And there seems to be a trend to justify that it was the right war. And some of the Vietnam veterans are trying to fight against it. And mostly this was shown in Japan. And in Japan, Japanese are very sympathetic to Vietnamese. And so there hasn't been any obstacles as such.
No problems with Freedom of Information Act to get the bombing patterns or the spraying patterns? Did you have any obstacles?
No, not at all. No.
Thank you very much for sharing the film. Are you aware of any new sources of contamination since investigating this, or in the last 4 years?
Yeah, well, not new sources, but
genetic mutation, I suppose.
not new sources, because it all happened before. Now we're seeing the results. So one of the things that I wanted to follow for my sequel was what happened to Tittabawassee River in Michigan, where Dow Chemical is. And there had been, it was discovered in the past few years that the whole river has been contaminated because Dow Chemicals was releasing the Agent Orange in the river, and the houses along the river has been contaminated, and they're having cancers and problems. So that's one of the things I wanted to do. And of course I asked Dow Chemicals if they would accept my interview. They said no. And then I wanted to combine the fact that the problem is still happening in US as well as in Vietnam. And I did some comparative stories, but in the end, what's happening in Vietnam is so much larger than what is happening to the residents of along the river of Tittabawassee, so we had to cut it out. So it became more of the Vietnamese story. So in terms of what's happening, in the hotspots in Vietnam, hotspots are like Bien Hoa and Da Nang and Phuket, those old air bases where they loaded and stored Agent Orange. The waters and soil is still contaminated, so people living around there are getting contamination even now. Is that what you meant by new source? Yes. Old source, but new contamination. Yeah.
How much cash have the Americans devoted to cleaning up those hotspots? 28, is it 28?
28 hotspots. How much? 3? I'm very bad with figures. It's like, it's how much they spent in Iraq in a day. Something like that.
As an American who was eligible for the draft in 1971, I managed to avoid it by lottery. This film touched me very deeply. And I know Vietnam is a big producer of seafood, fish, shrimp. I've been concerned for years about runoff, whether the seas around Vietnam are tested for dioxin, it's poisoning the seafood that they're producing.
Yeah, it has been tested for a long time, and it's all clear. And Vietnam, most of the dioxin has been washed away from the land of Vietnam, except for those 28 hot spots, and by rain, because it rains a lot over there. And Vietnamese government are especially concerned because of the shrimp export. So it was tested like in the 90s, and they said it was all clear. And that's one of the reasons why Vietnamese did not make such a big deal out of it, because they didn't want Americans think that it's still contaminated. But now it's safe, they say. Yeah, yeah, Vietnamese shrimps are good.
Is there a half-life for dioxin, like nuclear waste? Is there a half-life?
No, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away.
Persistence?
It doesn't go away. It just gets washed away.
It's washing away.
That's what I understand.
Goes elsewhere.
Goes elsewhere, which is pretty similar to maybe. Yeah.
How many? I mean, are there any official figures of how many families are affected by?
How many people? Vietnamese, 3 to 4 million.
Yeah, who were somehow in contact with Agent Orange. But I mean, how many families actually are feeling the direct effects by deformities
like children?
Yeah, children.
Well, the figure I heard was 700,000, according to Vietnamese Association of Victims of Agent Orange, which is usually called VAVA. And I would like to mention that that we started, after showing this film in Japan at theaters and at various gatherings, we collected quite a lot of donations. And with that seed money, we started a scholarship program called Seed of Hope. And we decided to call it Seed of Hope because at the end of the film, I said, deep in the soil, there's some hope of seed of hope, maybe germinating. We have to nurture it very carefully because it's very frail. When I said that, I wasn't really sure that there is hope. But by saying that there is hope, I thought maybe I can really believe it. But now that I started the scholarship and calling it Seed of Hope, I feel more strongly that there is hope when we decide to help each other, because that's all we have. And we are now helping 60 children between 13 to 15 of Vietnam who have been affected by Agent Orange to go to school for 3 years so that they can learn, they can go to vocational school, high school, so that at least they can be a little independent of the family and do their own thing. So that's a little bit of hope.
And you have some leaflets in the
I have
front.
brochure.
Yeah. So if you're interested, there's some leaflets at the front table you can pick up to learn a bit more about that initiative.
Do you know if it's at all on the agenda of U.S. diplomats in Vietnam or in Washington to address this issue, to improve relations with Vietnam? Have you met any diplomats?
Well, from my impression, from what I hear from Americans living in Vietnam, is that they try not to address it. Yeah, they try to avoid answering directly to the questions, and they are not unwilling to help monetarily, but they just don't want to admit that they're culpable of anything, any wrongdoing.
For the liability.
Liability. It's, you know, if they can admit that it affects Vietnam veterans of American soldiers, how can they deny that it has nothing to do with Vietnam? Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I want to say one thing, because my husband used to stop in Hong Kong many times. At FCC. So this show screening has a very deep meaning for me. And I think if he knew that this was happening, he would be very appreciative. Robin, Bob, and all the friends who are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a little gift from the FCC.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you everybody for being here.